All right, so I want to make a quick video here and talk a little bit about the OpenStreetMap US community vector tile server, which I think is a really cool newish resource in the OpenStreetMap world, and walk you through just how to set that up using QGIS and make a really simple map in QGIS using these tiles. So with any luck, I'll get you started pretty quick with this workflow and you can start making really simple maps. All right, so this is the homepage for the Community Vector Tile Server. This is based on the OpenMapTiles schema, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And I want to note that they have this usage policy here. It basically just limits usage for hobbyists and individuals and non-commercial uses. Definitely take a close look at this policy before using the tile server, but for the things we're doing in this project, I think we fall safely under this policy. All right, so without further ado, let's hop into QGIS here and create a new project up here on the left. And all right, so we start out with this blank screen. Just in case you're totally new to QGIS, we have this sort of browser window here over on the left. If you don't see this window, you're gonna have to go find it. I think there's an option up here to like manage the different windows available. But anyway, so we have these different map like layer sources available to us. This OpenStreetMap layer comes default. If I drag this into the main window, you can see the standard OpenStreetMap layer here, which is great. But today we want to try out this community vector tile server. So I'm going to remove this layer. We'll go back to that blank screen. And I'm going to go up to this vector tiles little folder here and add a new generic connection. So this little box is going to show up. I'm going to paste this link in, and this is the link for those OpenStreetMap US tiles that I just showed you. I'll put this specific source URL in the video description so you can paste it in real easily. But anyways, this is just the specific source for those tiles. And then for the name, I'll just type in OpenStreetMap US Community Vector Tiles. All right. So that's looking good. I'm going to hit OK. Actually, let's just pop that up to let's say 20 just in case. All right, so now if I expand this out, you can see this new vector tile source is available in our browser. I'm going to drag this into the main window and boom, we can see just at a very high level here, a bunch of data getting loaded from OpenStreetMap and served to us as those vector tiles. So awesome. Right now, this is kind of almost like a debug view, right? Like maybe you want your map to look like this, but it's got a lot going on here. I bet you anything those little points are like the names of these states or something getting added. And then, we can see some of these major roads and all sorts of different polygons, but nothing's really colored in any specific way. It's all just kind of dumped here for us to see that it exists, right? All right, so let's talk a little bit about how to style this into something a little bit more pleasing. So I'm going to go to the properties of this layer right here, and you can see that it has these layers, I guess they are, or rules. I don't know what these are called, but basically these different I'll call them rules that dictate what shows up in our web view or our map viewer here, right? So for example, if I were to uncheck lines and then at the bottom of the screen I have to hit apply, you can see all of the lines just disappear. So I'm gonna just remove all of these for now because we're gonna make our own. So I'll hit apply and you'll see the whole map just disappears in the background there. I'm gonna hit this plus button to add a rule. And let's call it a fill. So this is a fill rule, and by default, it selects all polygons in this layer. So if I hit apply, we can see that we're back to that sort of mess that it shows us every polygon that it knows about using these vector tiles. So that's not exactly what I want. I want something a little bit more specific, right? So I happen to know that one of the layers available to us is just called water. So I just clicked on that a couple of times and it opened up a little text field, and I'm going to type water and hit enter. And let's just try applying that, and boom. All right. So if I clear this window out, I can now see, sure enough, all of the water is getting rendered as this sort of brown color, and then everything else is just blank. All right, so I think we're getting somewhere here. I am going to go back to that same page, and let's pick out a more appropriate color for water. If I just double click on there it goes. I'm going to go over to color, and I don't know. I'll just pick something very blue, maybe this like light blue color. You can kind of play around here. I like these sort of light blue colors for my water. I don't know. Whatever suits you, you know. I'll hit OK. And then if I hit OK again and then apply, we can see that immediately applies to our map. So this is looking a little bit vibrant for me. I think I'm going to sort of tone it down a little bit. So I'm going to go back to that color picker and just desaturate it a bunch. Just make it a lot lighter. And then I'm going to go to this simple fill option here, and you can see you can really adjust a lot of things about this layer. But I honestly don't want that stroke around all of the water. So I'm going to just say no line, and that removes the outline of all of the water, right? So I'm going to hit OK again and apply. And yeah, I actually like this a lot. It's a very subdued water look. There's no like harsh outlines around it. I'm cool with that for now. And as a last little touch, I'm going to just remove polygon here because, maybe that's useful, but for now, I'm just not going to worry about it. I'm just going to remove that entirely. Okay. So that's great. We now have our water layer being rendered here, and you can see if I zoom in, it sort of loads in more of the water features as they become a part of the tiles that are getting served at this specific zoom level. So you can see all these like little lakes and other water features getting loaded in, and that's all very exciting. Okay, so let's talk about what other layers are available to us and how we can translate that into a more interesting map on QGIS. So I'm going to switch back over to my browser here, and I'm going to point you towards this OpenMapTiles website. So this is sort of the schema, the framework that dictates how these tiles are being used. You can find this OpenMapTiles format served from a bunch of different places. So this is kind of our cheat sheet for what is being served to us using these tiles, and we can use this schema documentation to create a much more sophisticated map. So I clicked on schema up in that top right corner, and you can see the list of layers available to us. So we were just looking at the water layer, and this is the layer that includes, all the ocean or lake, river type features. And you can see there's actually some differentiation here. So if we wanted to say not render swimming pools, we could select for or not for some of these specific classes of like the type of water feature that we're interested in. I'm going to circle back to that. First, let's just add maybe some buildings and roads as a sort of a basic filling in the map kind of exercise. And then we'll touch just a little bit on how to select the types of buildings and roads, which I think will go a long way to sort of getting you started and show you where this can go in terms of making a better map. Okay, so I'm going to go back up to this building layer. And, I think this is a great next step. We have the water, but it'd be nice to see where all the buildings are, and it'll sort of help us navigate around the map and see some of the most interesting features. So if I just go back to QGIS and I type in building for the next rule, so I'm going to go add rule. This is going to be another fill rule. And, I'm going to pick out a different color for the buildings. Maybe just like a light brown. I don't know. Just kind of making this up, but that's kind of a nice orange. Okay. Sure. That's fine with me. It was like a yellow brown. I'm not much of a graphic designer, so I'm sure you could pick out something more interesting, but this works for me. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to go remove that stroke style. Again, this is just my preference, but you can do whatever suits you. And then over here under layer, we're going to type building. And remember, there's no S here. The first time I did this, I typed in buildings, like it just felt right, but it's sensitive to those changes. So we're going to just type building so that it matches that layer that's being provided to us. And then again, just for the sake of example and keeping things simple, I'm going to remove that filter for now. That may actually be very useful to you, but we're going to keep things as basic as possible right now. All right, so I'm going to hit enter and I'm going to hit apply. So we're not seeing anything show up in the background here, but I think I know why. We're zoomed out pretty far. So if I were to zoom in, I'm hoping we might see some buildings loading in here. So here are all the buildings visible on our map. I just scrolled up to the Richmond area. You can see my city loading in here. Very exciting. All right, so that looks all right to me. And let's go back over to OpenMapTiles and let's just pick out one more. Maybe let's do some roads. So if I go over to transportation, this is kind of like the umbrella term for roads. I think there's like bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure in here. Looks like there's some railways and maybe even like bus lines available. So that's all very exciting. For now, let's just do all transportation. It's probably going to be a little bit of a mess, and then maybe we can filter for the specific kind of transportation we're interested in. So yeah, I guess I'll just stay zoomed out here, and let's go back into properties. We're going to hit add, and this time I want to try using the line. So it's important for fill versus line versus marker. Those are only going to work on the types of features that are appropriate for them. So if the vector tiles are serving roads, they're probably going to be linear features. And so if I were to use a fill rule for the roads, they wouldn't appear because it doesn't really make sense to fill in a line. So with that in mind, I'm going to hit line. And, I like just picking out the color. I don't know, maybe like a yellow color. I'm kind of feeling like a atlasy kind of, ooh, that's an exciting sort of vibrant, sort of greenish yellow. I'm all about it. Let's do it. So I'm going to hit OK. And yeah, that's fine for now. Let's go over and just hit transportation. And, once again, I'm just keeping this super simple, so I'm going to remove that for now. And let's hit apply. All right, look at that. So we've got all sorts of transportation relevant lines here. This does look to me like it's more than just highways. I think there's definitely some rail lines getting rendered here. If I zoom in, we can actually see all sorts of different roads and other transportation relevant things getting loaded in. If I zoom in too far, it's not showing. I may have set a bad max zoom for this, so that's another thing to take note of when you're setting this up. But this zoom level's fine for me right now. I'm going to go up and hit this identify features button and just click on one of these. And yeah, sure enough, this is like a rail yard area. And you can see these rail related transportation elements getting rendered in here. Well, that's just great. I think this is a good opportunity to show you how to filter one of these rules. And then that's probably where I'll leave things. Let me know if you want any follow-up, but I think this is probably a good place to start. So I'm going to go back to this list of rules. And so we're going to want to create a filter for the transportation layer that let's say only select some highways. So I'm going to go back over to the schema, and I can see motorway, trunk. There's all these different types of highway features available to us. If you're unfamiliar with these, there's probably some information right here on this page, but I know that there's a wealth of information on the OpenStreetMap wiki. That's a really great place to go look for some of the definitions of what these roads mean. The OpenStreetMap project was started in the UK, so a lot of sort of British English is used in the tags that we refer to features with. So yeah, definitely good when you're making a more specific map to have a good understanding of what you're selecting and why, and that'll help reduce any surprises as you're sort of figuring out what your rules should be. For now, though, I'm going to just kind of go for it, see what happens. So let's say we want to just render primary highways. I think those are some of the largest highways, if I recall correctly. Motorway might be more significant. I'm sure someone will correct me on that. But anyways, I'll go back over to the filter. And so I'm going to type in a filter that is just for, say, primary. So I'm going to use QGIS can be a little bit specific about quotes. I'm not really sure why, to be honest with you. So I'm going to use double quotes and say class. And then I'm going to use this is sort of selector. I don't know what you call it. So we're basically saying, hey, we want only the features where class is. And then using single quotes, I'm going to type in primary. So now we have a filter for transportation features whose class is primary. Okay, I'm going to hit enter. You can see it sort of saves that there. I'm going to hit apply. And sure enough, I'll get rid of that window. We can see some primary highways getting loaded in here, which is just fabulous. So that's great, but maybe I want a little bit more than that. So let's go back to the properties. And I'm going to change this a bit. So instead of just doing primary, what if I said class in, and then I'm going to give it a list in parentheses of the classes I'm interested in. So for now, it'll just be two things in my list, primary and secondary. I'm going to hit apply again. And sure enough, we can see a bunch more roads loaded in. So I know this has been a sort of simple overview of how to make a map using these tiles. There's tons of other different options when you're creating the filters, lots to read about how these tiles get made and why these different layers are, these classes are created the way that they are. But I think it can often be difficult for folks just getting started to even just get something in front of them. You know what I mean? So hopefully this was helpful to you, just sort of getting a basic look at how to make a map here. And I'll just leave you with one more tip that I really like. So QGIS has this feature called layouts. So if I hit new print layout up here, and it really wants me to name it. So I'm just going to name it like demonstration. And I hit OK. So it opens up this new window here. And this is like a output for your map, like exactly what you want your map to look like when you print it, or I don't know, export it as an image. Maybe you want to put it in a blog post or something like that, right? So it's like this layout sort of interface here, right? So if I hit page properties, I just right clicked here and hit page properties. Over on the right side, it lets us pick exactly what kind of size we want our page to be. So there's all these different sort of standard paper sizes, some like standard screen sizes, 1920 by 1080. You could pick that. I'm going to go to custom and just show you that you can create any old size you want, right? So, maybe you have a specific number of pixels that you wish to select here. You can do that. And then, there's all these different other options you can get into. I won't cover them just in this video, but lots of fun things you can add to your print layout. But I'm just going to show you real quick that you can add your map, and it will snap to those corners there to fill the page. And boom, you have the map you just created in a print layout. So then using this move item content tool, very helpfully named, you can, using this tool, interact with the map inside of the print layout and even zoom in, for example. And once we zoom in far enough, those buildings are going to load in thanks to the tiles. And there you go. So now you have a print layout, just a very simple example here. And if you wanted to, you could say export this as a PDF or an SVG or as an image. So I could click export image and export this somewhere that I want to. There's all these different options for that. All right, I've gone on longer than I expected to. I think this is a good place to leave this video, but if this interests anyone, please let me know, and we could talk more about some of the advanced features here. And yeah, hope you have a great day.